I want to share with you the most excruciating, painful loss of my tech sales career. It was a multi-million-dollar deal that I chased for 1.3 years that finally fell through in the last moments. Now, when I was at Google Cloud, I closed some monster deals, like a $10 million over 3 deal. It was glorious, but most people don't talk about how many painful losses take place, especially if you've been in tech sales for a while and you're selling at the enterprise level. And those losses, they sting, especially when you invest so much into them. So let's walk through the deal, how I opened it up, some of the challenges along the way, and how it ultimately fell through, and how it led me to be in front of you here today. Hey, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it, that rhymes, but this deal was a doozy. Let's dig into it. So first off, I opened up this deal in a very creative way. It was a company that spent millions of dollars on AWS. They fit my ICP that I knew of because I was a customer of theirs. And in my role at a startup where I was the second founding US seller in a global company, the whole United States was my oyster. I could go after any accounts I wanted. So I decided to use a creative angle that I was a customer of this prospect. And I used the fact that I was a customer to connect with their customer success team. And after connecting with their team, I asked them for a favor. I asked if they could introduce me to their chief product officer, whose last name was Kim, and that happened to be the last name of the CEO of my company. I had a feeling they were both Korean American individuals that might have common connections and a shared cultural background, and I called that out. And what do you know, the fact that I was a customer and there was the Kim connection paired with the fact that I was able to give a succinct value prop to the customer success team before making the intro saying, we work with companies like you spending millions of dollars on AWS, which I found out, by the way, by looking at your job posting for engineering roles, we help them save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'd love to see if we could produce similar results for you to help improve the profitability of your company. I paired all of that warmth and familiarity and commonality with a clear value prop, and that was enough for my customer success contact to hook the executive to meet with our executive for executive alignment. Executive alignment is a powerful move to open doors at the highest levels of your highest potential prospects. Now, that meeting went really well between the two Kims, and it turned out they did have mutual connections, and my CEO was all excited that I'd opened up this multi-million-dollar opportunity. And our CEO then was referred to the CTO, who he actually met on my behalf. And then he got referred to the VP of engineering. And that's where I was brought in to engage and continue to carry the deal forward. I met with the VP of engineering by way of my CEO and their CTO delegating, and that was a good conversation. I was able to uncover a cost savings initiative that was important to the VP of Eng and the whole organization as they look to improve their profitability and improve their financial health, which mattered because they're trying to IPO or go public in the coming years. So now we had a meaningful business driver to justify a deeper exploration and evaluation of how we could help with their cost savings initiative. And that led the VP of Eng to introduce me to an engineering manager and other engineers to get in the technical weeds and talk about what they were doing today and show them a little bit about the art of the possible. We started to look at potential cost savings at a high level. And after a couple of conversations with the engineering manager and his engineers, who were the technical boots on the ground dealing with the cost savings tactics and technology, the engineering manager pulled me aside, metaphorically speaking, and asked me for a one-off call. And in that call, I remember I was actually standing in my friend's front yard. I was about to hang out with a friend, but of course, the prospect wanted to talk, so I definitely prioritized that. And so before entering into my friend's house and hanging out, I took this call, and I'm just like pacing in his front yard. Might have even been the side of the house. And this engineering manager says, Chris, I talked to legal. There's no way they want to take on the risk of working with a third party for cost savings. They were burned in the past by a partner like you. The deal's dead. I tried to, in the moment, create more of an opening and objection handle. Of course, I empathized with where he was coming from, but ultimately at that time, the deal was dead and I had to accept it. And that was a tough pill to swallow. But then I got back to the drawing board and I got creative, and I went to my CEO and I strategized with him on how he could leverage executive alignment to go back to the chief product officer or maybe the CTO to reopen the conversation and then facilitate an executive alignment conversation with the legal department, the general counsel, maybe the finance team, and the people that were saying no to even exploring further, right? So how could we reopen this conversation? I thought executive alignment might be the path. And fortunately, my CEO was able to go to the executive level and open things up again and get that conversation set up with the right people in legal and also on the finance team. So we set up that executive level conversation. And fortunately, it wasn't me necessarily going to the executives myself and going over the head of the engineering manager, but it was our CEO who had relationships that had been set up earlier on that was able to set that up. And so it was a smarter move to leverage my CEO to then go over the head of the engineering manager. And that was less bad because I have had deals that I killed because I was caught at a lower level and I wasn't able to get over them. And when I did go over their head, they were pissed off, and that actually ruined trust, and they weren't willing to work with me on the evaluation. So it was smart that I established executive alignment in the beginning at that level, and I was able to leverage that to get past the resistance and set up that executive alignment call with the legal and finance team. Anyways, we have that conversation, and it does create an opening where we can talk about their objections and concerns. And the legal team mentioned a concern around our specific model. There's a technical term for it, which I don't need to share with you, but the nature of our partnership and how their relationship with AWS as a cloud provider would change. And as a result of the conversation, we realized that was something we would need to address more formally by sharing documentation that we would have to dig up. And so we'd have to do some homework. And the finance team also mentioned concerns around lack of access to AWS resources. So yet another objection, two objections we uncovered. And that was something we'd have to follow up and address after talking with AWS. But at least through the executive alignment conversation, we uncovered these objections. And then we put in the work, we did our homework, and sent extensive documentation on the model to address legal's concerns. And when I say address their concerns, I believe we neutralized them. We didn't get legal to suddenly become an excited proponent of our solution, but just to simply be neutralized and not be a blocker. And then we were able to follow up and neutralize the concerns of the finance department around losing access to their AWS resources. So then we reopened conversations with the engineering team to get back into exploring the cost savings we could deliver. But I was met with more resistance around whether we could deliver those savings and if they were even meaningful enough to justify an evaluation. And then finally, the engineering team said, Chris, we got to put this on pause. And the deal died yet again for the second time. They had important product releases they needed to focus on for their customers that was the top priority. And this initiative of cost savings now was going to go on the back burner. So the deal died again. And it actually led to things being put on pause for months at a time. It ended up being 3 or more months. But I didn't give up on this prospect. It was a whale of a prospect that could change my quarter, year, and career. And I talked to a friend at AWS on the deal, just venting a little bit, and he said the best deals die on the vine 3 to 5 times. So this was in line with that. What a funny expression, but it's true. And so months later, I follow up and I'm able to reopen the conversation. But I still had the resistance around whether we could deliver enough savings to justify the evaluation and the change. And they even mentioned, oh, we have a tool that's getting the job done, or at least part of the solution that we could deliver. Why should we look at you? So we had a whole nother objection to deal with. I mean, the objections were stacking now. Overall, I think in this deal, I had 6 objections or more that I dealt with in the process. So definitely was met with resistance. And I figured out a creative angle to leverage the breadth of our company and other areas where we could impact their business and deliver savings. And I tapped our managed service provider leader, Ken, who is an incredible resource, to bring him in for executive technical alignment and to offer another solution that we could pair with the original cost savings solution we were looking at. And again, I'm not going to get into the weeds of what the different solutions were. Technically, we were looking at providing resale and access to our cost optimization software. And now we're looking at managed services to handle back-end IT processes that they could shift to us at a fractional cost, where they could also reduce their AWS support bill, which would, if it flowed through us and we provided support instead of AWS providing it directly, and that would add additional savings for them. So anyways, I basically came up with a creative angle to bring in another technical executive to build more trust, bring value, and also provide a more holistic solution from other lines of business that we could align to deliver a more complete solution, more savings, and more value. So I got creative. And then I ended up going out to LA to meet the prospect in person, which is a pro move, because when you can take them out to dinner and treat them and drop some cash and have a great experience, you really trigger some reciprocity, you strengthen the relationship, and you get them to share insight that you didn't know that wouldn't have come out in virtual meetings where it's less personal. So I was able to get our VP of MSP to come out to LA with me. We took the VP of engineering out to a great dinner, and he even thanked me for my persistence and not giving up on them. And in connecting with our technical leader and him sharing a ton of insights, that VP of Eng actually saw more value. He saw us being a trusted advisor that could bring a ton more value than he originally realized to their organization. So this opened up the opportunity. And then I went to their conference, which I had paid to be a part of, where I was able to spend more time with the VP of Eng, but from the perspective of me being their customer. And then he introduced me to their CEO, their CTO, their chief financial officer, and the product leaders. I met everyone. I put a face to a name. I built some trust with them, and they saw I was a customer and I actually cared about their solution, and I was driving their top line revenue. So come on, let's do some business, baby. And that was a powerful catalyzer that ultimately led to the evaluation accelerating. And then from there, we were able to follow up and get a pilot in place where we could test out our cost-saving software and get an accurate analysis of how much we could save them. We had some follow-up meetings with our VP of Managed Services to build more trust, and we put together a thorough presentation where we were able to make a proposal that was very tailored and aligned to their goals. It shared clear return on investment, and I adapted the presentation to speak the language of the mission and values of the company to align to their initiatives to IPO and improve their profitability to prepare for that. And it was such a tailored, strong presentation that I got the verbal go-ahead from the engineering team to move forward in the deal. Man, I was so proud of the work I put in, and it felt so good to get that verbal yes. And we were heading into the holidays, it was around October, so I knew we had to move swiftly when it came to progressing things now to working with finance and legal. And so the VP of Eng had become a champion of mine. We were texting, and he was giving me everything I needed in terms of the insider insight of who we needed to influence in finance and legal and how we could influence them. And so I worked with the VP of Eng to get in contact with the controller who had the authority to sign the contract. And I had a couple negotiation conversations with that controller, and the VP of Eng prepared me that he was going to play hardball. And I was able to identify a concession in terms of a 1% discount that would make the controller, the finance team, happy if they agreed to do the deal on our timeline before December 20th. Now, after I gave the 1% concession to the finance team, the controller still tried to push back on me, but I held firm, reinforcing value and the concession we were already giving. It's important when you're negotiating to give some concession to the prospect to make them feel like they're special and they're taken care of, while also knowing where you need to hold the line and reinforce value, and even the number at which you're willing to walk away from the deal completely. So I went over finance with the help of my VP of engineering champion, and they were ready to sign. And now the VP of Eng and finance were working on my behalf to go to legal, which was the stingiest group. The general counsel had been burned by a partner like us in the past, and they were neutralized with their past objections around our model and things like that, but they weren't really a fan. And so I get introduced to legal formally to begin the negotiation process, and I send an email assuring them that we're going to make sure they're taken care of. and they hit me with a wrist slap saying, "Hey, we're not looking for sales platitudes. We mean business. This is a serious thing." And man, they're prickly like a porcupine. And I realized quickly that with the help of my engineering champion, he said, "You should bring in your general counsel and actually put your ego aside and remove yourself from communication. So include your general counsel and your VP of MSP to communicate with the legal team." And yeah, Chris, you got to do that. So I put my ego aside and I brought in our general counsel on the legal team to help manage the communication going forward. And I fed him exactly what to say on the back end and then to communicate it in his legal speak. And so we did that. Our head of MSP, our VP of Managed Services, also was answering some of their questions. But suddenly it's radio silence and I'm not hearing from the legal team. And then I get bad news from my VP of Engineering champion via Slack. He says, "Chris, it turns out the legal team has some other more pressing contracts with current partners, and they're not going to be able to get to this in time for the deadline that we set out." And what ends up happening, in spite of my best efforts, is the deal slips and it doesn't happen in time for year end, and it slips to the new year. So the deal died again for the third time. It was the largest deal that would have ever been closed by a seller other than our CEO, because he closed massive deals as the best seller at the company, because the CEO is always the best seller at the company, whether it's a startup or an enterprise, honestly. And I would have smashed my quota out of the park, but I go into the holidays empty-handed. Now, fast forward to the next year, and it's been over a year, and I work proactively with my VP of Eng. We have consistent touch points, and finally, we get to a point where legal picks things back up. And now I have removed myself from communication, and it's time for the general counsel to communicate with legal and carry the torch forward. And the legal team of the prospect hits us with an objection, yet another, around SOC 2 compliance. And they ask us if we're compliant, and our VP of Managed Services shares a document that isn't black and white, which legal teams, they want to see black and white. It's kind of vague. And they give us another wrist slap. And it's not me this time. It's our VP of MSP, who is a really credible technical guy. He's brilliant. He's worked in this industry for a long time. And now he gets a wrist slap for communicating in a way that doesn't align with what they're looking for. And boom, another strike against us. Things are getting really dicey. We're walking on thin ice. Fortunately, the VP of MSP is able to apologize, and in conjunction with our general counsel, they're able to communicate in a way that's effective. And in fact, I leverage my champion, my VP of Eng champion, to give us guidance on how to apologize and handle the communication effectively, and to share what maybe the legal team was looking for on the prospect's end. But then came the straw that broke the camel's back, the thing that shattered the deal and ended it for good. The prospect's legal team, just as skeptical as ever, asked for a specific legal artifact, a document, a report that we were supposed to have to share with them. And it was pretty private information, but we were under mutual NDA, as you should be at this stage of an opportunity. And we had to decide as a company if we were going to share it. And I had to go to our VP of Operations and CEO and our own general counsel. And our leadership decided that we weren't going to share the document because there were some skeletons that might be revealed that would set off even more flags with the prospect. So we decided not to share the document, and we communicated that to the prospect, which in some ways was a reasonable thing to do. It was very sensitive information, and it was valid to say that we wouldn't share the document, but suddenly crickets from the prospect. And over the next few weeks, radio silence from the prospect. And in my weekly team updates with the sales team and the CEO, I got nothing. I don't know what to do. Even my VP of Eng contact isn't getting back to me. And he had been at a point where we were slacking, and he was asking for steps to move to our solution, assuming we would move forward. He was giving me happy ears, telling me everything I wanted to hear, like it's a done deal. And now he's not responding. And I'll never forget one evening after work hours when I'm walking my puppy Bella into our local park, and I get a call, and I see it's from the VP of Engineering. I pick it up. I say, "Hey, Jason, how you doing?" And he said, "Hey, Chris." And my contact, my champion, he sounds dejected. he sounds like the world is ending. His tone was unbelievable. It's like out of a movie, and I feel like my world's starting to spin a little bit, honestly. Like things are spinning. Like I felt like I was in a movie. Time stood still. Jason, what's up, man? And he says, Chris, the deal's dead. And it really, it was almost like he was delivering news like a loved one had passed away. It was so bad. And him and I, we mourned the loss of that deal, honestly. And I tried to, push back a bit and say, Jason, is there anything we can do? Can we do this? He's like, no, it's done, Chris. And whoa, what a conversation. I'll never forget it. And right there, the deal died. 1.3 years of time invested. Hours and hours of calls, of research, flying out to LA, spending time, investing money over dinners, going to their conference, meeting all their executives. The deal dies 3 times, 6 or more objections. I fought for it. I believed in it, invested so much, all out the window, complete loss. This is the reality of tech sales and doing enterprise deals that most people don't talk about. And this actually was the deal that led me to give up my 6-figure W-2, my cushy 6-figure base salary in tech sales, to go all in on my dream of building Tech Sales Accelerator and all in on this YouTube channel. I realized that I could invest that 1.3 years of effort, that grit, that persistence into building my dream of helping more people create their own tech sales successes and using this career path as a vehicle to personal transformation and creating a life they love. I could help more people get on this wave so they can deal with that bullshit themselves and lose big deals. But you know what? I'm so grateful that deal did lead me here. And it was actually the pain that I needed to launch into entrepreneurship. What's cool is that VP of Engineering personally wrote a letter on my behalf to my CEO to say that Chris did everything right. And I continue to stay in touch with that VP of Engineering to this day, and we've become really close. So it's amazing to see that relationship is something that I got out of the deal, regardless of if I won it or not. And when I look back at my 10-year career in tech sales at Oracle, Google Cloud, and a startup, all of my biggest losses, all of my struggles, my failure, my rejection, it all shaped me, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Regardless of winning or losing, just being the man in the arena has allowed me to build these incredible relationships with amazing, thoughtful people that I carry with me for the rest of my life. It's allowed me to develop my character, my perseverance and persistence, the ability to keep going even when there's no indication that success is going to come, and to lose and then bounce back quickly. That character, those relationships, all of that self-development, I bring with me into entrepreneurship, now building Tech Sales Accelerator to help more people use tech sales as a vehicle to creating a life of personal transformation, a life they love, and becoming a more impactful version of themselves for themselves, their family, and everyone in their life. So it all led me here. It led to this passion. So if you're someone looking to break into tech sales for the first time, I hope this is a reality check and helps you understand what you're signing up for. And I still say it's worth it. And if you're looking for a coach to help you break in with the best companies and succeed in your job hunt to open doors to a life-changing opportunity, consider me as your guy. And you can apply for coaching at my Calendly link linked in the description of this video. And I'd say the same to the SDRs and AEs out there who want coaching. Use my Calendly link linked in the description of this video to book some time to apply for coaching, because I'm someone who can battle alongside you to help you get those meetings with whale accounts, to help you progress those deals. And I can't guarantee you're going to win all of them. And in fact, you won't. You'll lose a lot of opportunities on this path, but you will win some big life-changing deals that will change your quarter, year, and career. And you're going to grow in the process, especially working with a coach like me who's going to help shape your mindset. And man, the mind is a flexible mirror. You shift it a little bit and it opens up worlds of possibilities, not just in tech sales, but in your life beyond tech sales. And guys, I would love to work with you, but I can't work with everyone. I have limited capacity. So if you're serious about bringing on a coach, then again, book time with me at my Calendly link linked in the description of this video. I think I said that 3 times, so you know where to find me and how to connect with me. Thank you for tuning into this video and being a part of this growing tech sales community. I respect you for investing in your personal and professional development, and to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living, and we'll see you in the next one.